There comes a time in life when the relationship between parents and children begins to shift. It happens slowly, sometimes without you even noticing it at first. You spend many years raising your children, loving them, guiding them, sacrificing for them. You give them everything you have with all your heart, expecting nothing in return but their happiness and well-being. And for a while, that's enough. But one day, things feel different. You might notice that they no longer ask for your advice. When you share your thoughts, they dismiss them. They speak over you, correct you, or even talk down to you. And slowly, you begin to feel invisible. Or worse, like a burden. It hurts, and it's confusing. After all that you've done, all the love you've given, why would they treat you this way? If your children have started treating you with less respect than you deserve, it's natural to feel frustrated. You may feel a mix of anger, sadness, and disappointment. You may want to remind them of all the times you stayed up late taking care of them, the things you gave up for their sake, the endless support you've offered, even now. But here's the hard truth. Getting angry or reminding them of the past rarely fixes anything. In fact, it can create more distance. Arguments build walls, not bridges. So what can you do when your children stop showing you the respect and kindness you've earned? How do you respond in a way that brings back your dignity without causing more hurt? The answer lies in a few simple but powerful shifts. These aren't tricks or tactics. They are changes in how you see yourself and how you carry yourself. And when you make these changes, your children will begin to see you differently too. Let's talk about 6 powerful things you can do to regain the respect of your children without conflict, without resentment, and without losing yourself. First, you must stop chasing their approval. As parents get older, many try to stay close to their children by constantly accommodating them. You may say yes when you want to say no. You may keep quiet when they hurt your feelings. You may go out of your way to make life easier for them, thinking that if you just give a little more, they'll love and respect you more. But that's not how respect works. The more you chase it, the more it slips away. Respect isn't earned by pleasing others. It's earned by respecting yourself. When you put your needs aside again and again, you silently teach others that your feelings come second. Over time, they start believing it. They expect you to adjust, to agree, to stay silent. And that's when they stop valuing your voice. I once knew a woman named Margaret. She had been strong and independent her whole life. But as she got older, she started allowing her children to take the lead in everything. She changed her plans to fit their schedules, kept her opinions to herself, and even tolerated rude behavior just to avoid conflict. "I just want to keep the family together," she told me. But instead, she lost her place in it. Margaret thought she was protecting her family, but what she was really doing was disappearing from it. The first step to regaining respect is to stop acting like you need it. You don't have to be rude or harsh. You simply have to start standing up for yourself. Say no when something doesn't feel right. Speak up when something bothers you. Don't hide your true thoughts just to keep the peace. Because when you start respecting yourself, others will begin to do the same. Second, don't argue. Lead by example. When someone disrespects us, our first instinct is often to speak up loudly, to argue, to defend ourselves. You might want to remind your children of everything you've done. You might want to demand that they listen. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly gained someone's respect by arguing with them? Respect isn't earned through words. It's shown through the way you carry yourself. If you respond to disrespect with anger, yelling, or emotional reactions, all it does is confirm what they already believe, that they have power over your emotions. I knew a man named Frank. He was a retired school teacher, respected, calm, wise. But at home, his grown children dismissed him. They spoke over him, made jokes at his expense, and ignored his advice. At first, he tried to argue. He got defensive, raised his voice, tried to make them see his point. But the more he pushed, the more they pulled away. Then Frank stopped arguing. He started listening more, speaking less, and carrying himself with quiet confidence. He didn't try to win anyone over. He simply acted like someone who deserved respect. Over time, his children noticed. They began to listen. Not because he forced them to, but because they saw in him something calm, wise, and strong. If your children don't respect you, don't lower yourself to their level. Don't beg for understanding. Show them what dignity looks like. Let your presence speak louder than your words. Third, withdraw your emotional dependence. This one is hard, especially when you love your children deeply. You may want to feel needed by them. You may want their affection, their attention, their validation. But if your happiness depends on them, the balance in the relationship shifts. They may start feeling pressure. They may pull away. People, yes, even your own children, tend to respect those who are emotionally independent. I remember a woman named Helen, a loving mother. When her children grew up and became busy with their own lives, she waited by the phone every day. When they didn't call, she called them. Often. She told them how lonely she was, how much she missed them, how much she wished they would visit. But instead of drawing them closer, it made them uncomfortable. They started avoiding her calls. It felt like pressure. Then Helen changed. She stopped waiting. She joined a knitting group. She started gardening again. She found joy in her own life. And then, something beautiful happened. Her children started calling. Not out of guilt, but because they wanted to. When your children see that you are happy on your own, they'll feel drawn to you again, because people are attracted to strength, not need. Fourth, set boundaries and enforce them. This is one of the most important things you can do. If your children speak to you rudely, ignore your time, or dismiss your thoughts, you have to ask yourself, am I allowing this? People treat you the way you allow them to treat you. Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's about teaching them how to treat you. I knew a man named Robert. He had been a successful businessman, confident and respected. But with his adult children, he let things slide. They interrupted him, corrected him, even criticized him unfairly. At first, he ignored it. He didn't want to cause tension. But over time, he realized his silence was giving them permission. So he started calmly responding. When someone interrupted him, he'd say, "I'll speak when you're ready to listen." When someone dismissed his opinion, he'd say, "You don't have to agree with me, but I expect to be heard respectfully." At first, his kids were surprised, but eventually, they adjusted. They realized their father wouldn't accept being spoken to that way anymore. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to stand firm. And if someone crosses your boundary, gently remind them, and don't back down. 5th, stop giving without appreciation. Many parents give endlessly: money, time, help, support. You do it out of love, expecting little in return. But if your kindness is met with silence, entitlement, or complaints, it's time to pause. When people get too used to your giving, they stop seeing it as kindness. They start expecting it. And when you stop, they don't feel grateful. They feel annoyed. I knew a father named George. He was always there for his children. Anytime they needed something, he was there. But they didn't say thank you. They just expected more. Eventually, George realized that his giving had become something they took for granted. So he stopped offering help automatically. He waited for them to ask, and even then, sometimes he said no. At first they were shocked, but over time they began to appreciate his help when it came. They stopped taking him for granted. When you give, let it be out of love, not guilt, and make sure it's returned with appreciation. Finally, build a life outside of your children. This may be the most important of all. When your whole life revolves around your children, they may start to feel smothered, or worse, they may see you as someone who doesn't have anything else going on. But when they see you as a person with your own passions, your own joy, your own full life, everything changes. I knew a widow named Eleanor. After her husband passed, she focused completely on her children. She called them constantly, gave advice, tried to stay involved in every part of their lives. But it became too much. Her children pulled away. Then one day, Eleanor decided to change. She joined a reading group. She took a weekend trip with friends. She started volunteering at a community center. And her children noticed. They admired her strength. They wanted to spend time with her again. They respected her. When you live fully, your children will want to be part of that fullness. So don't just wait for them. Live, grow, be joyful. Because respect isn't something you demand. It's something you inspire. By the way you live, by the way you carry yourself, and by the way you love yourself. If your children are treating you with less respect, don't chase after it. Instead, turn inward. Reclaim your worth. Stand tall. Speak calmly. Set limits. Find joy in your own life. And when you do, something beautiful will happen. They will begin to see you in a new light. Not as someone waiting for their attention, but as someone who deserves respect, just by being who you are. And that respect, it will return. Not because you asked for it, but because you earned it. Let me know if you'd like this formatted for voiceover video scenes or broken into social media posts.